All right.
Okay, and we are live. Thank you for joining the Co-op SoapBox podcast. My name is Rodon. I'm joined with Aaron, and I'm joined by Buttered Toast as well.
Hi.
Anthony will be joining us later tonight, I believe. So please wait for him if you want to hear his beautiful voice. Um,
It is
so
shadowy presence.
yeah, and his very masked over face from the darkness. Um, So, of course, we kind of need to talk about what happened a few days ago. Right
What
now,
a few days ago.
as of as of the time where we are streaming slash recording this, it is January 11th, 2021. Um, and just a few days ago, we had an insurrection attempt, a coup attempt,
I need you to quiet
at
down.
the Capitol building in Washington D.C. Um, by Trump supporters, Proud Boys, people in of that nature, um, and it is driving a serious wedge between the parties in this country, probably more than there has ever been a division within recent modern history. This is the most divided that I think I've ever seen it, and it's the most divided uh, that I think it's. Oh man, I hope it's the most divided we're gonna be, but I don't think it. I don't think that that's the case anymore. I think it's gonna get worse. But uh, first things first, we have been talking about uh, the issue with having people storm the Capitol and then not a whole lot of action really being taken while that was happening. And that was bothering me quite a bit. Why aren't the Capitol Police really taking control of this? Why are the National Guard not immediately being deployed? Why are the same tactics that were being used against Black Lives Matter protesters that did not storm the Capitol and were, I think, a couple of blocks away from it, um, were used against Black Lives Matter protesters, such as tear gas, flashbangs, rubber bullets, that sort of thing, weren't really used as much, nearly as much, against literal insurrectionists. Um, and that is deeply troubling to me. Uh, it's deeply worrying that this is happening to leftist groups or groups that are working for human rights versus a group that wants to install an undemocratically, uh, you know what I mean, trying to install essentially a dictator, trying to install somebody who is not meant to be in power. That's deeply troubling to me. So I'd like to hear Aaron's general thoughts here, and then I'd like to hear Jaden's as well, or rather Buttered Toast. And yeah, I know. We always mess up and say each other's names anyway.
I hope you
But
all never counted on anonymity on any of this.
no, I am no, of course not, because it's so easy to find out people's names anyway. It's not something that I'm super
Facial
worried about.
recognition.
I mostly just like to keep the screen name because I'm used to hearing it. I'm called Rodon all the time by my
It's easier for
friends.
people
So
to find you too.
yeah, and it's easier for people to find me because if you look me up by my name, you're gonna have a harder time finding me than if you look up Rodon. So
So number one, with this situation that happened on Wednesday, I think it is prudent to basically agree or call it what it is, right? And there's so many different people who have all these different opinions on, what it was. Naturally, the far right and the overall right wing want to dismiss it, or a lot of people from the right wing want to dismiss it and say that it was, just a protest that got a little rowdy or something. And a lot of times they do that because they see that as being the response for the left when talking about BLM protests throughout the summer, or anti-fascists or whatever. But I think there's some distinctions that need to be made, and they've already been made, but they need to be repeated by everybody who understands these nuanced differences. Number one, we're not talking about a random protest. We're talking about something that was planned politically and out in the open by a certain side of the aisle, for the last month or so. This has been in the works for a long time, right? So this started out not sporadically, but as a completely planned and invitation sent out RSVP style event for folks who do support Donald Trump. That's number one. Number two, the action of marching from where the protest initially was to the Capitol was ordered. It was directed. It was dictated, and it was done so by the President of the United States. You don't see that with other protests. In fact, I cannot recall if there's ever been a time, at least not in modern history, where a president directs a protest or a mob to go and do something, and literally walk down the street and go to this place. That doesn't happen normally, right? Number three, when talking about some of the civil disobedience that happened throughout 2020, a lot of that happened out of anger and response to a verifiable tragedy that kept happening over and over again. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, so on and so forth. These killings of virtually innocent people.
Tamir Rice, Eric Gardner.
All of them, right? So that those demonstrations happened in response. These were people who were angry that verifiable factual events took place, such as cops killing innocent Black people. Whereas this response that happened on Wednesday was done so in a completely fabricated manner. It's a response to a made-up conspiracy theory.
Yeah, over a fraudulent election. One of the most closely monitored elections in the history of the United States, not human history, but in the United States. It's the weirdest thing. It's crazy, the links.
The two do not equal one another.
Not at all. Not even close.
No, and what's interesting is that Trump's own administration, right? The part of his cabinet that oversees and makes sure that elections are done fairly, even admitted and said that this was the most secure election in at least modern history. What his own administration, and of course he turned around and fired the director, but how insane! The other thing is interesting now that we're talking about the election itself or the claims that it was fraudulent. The other thing that's interesting to point out is that this isn't a surprise. Trump has been saying this for 2 years now, that if he loses the 2020 election, it can only be by fraud. He already pinned that into the minds of his supporters. He's been saying this over and over and over again. So it doesn't matter if there was fraud or not. He's been convincing them for 2 years now that the only way they can lose is if the election was legitimately stolen from them.
Well, and you can see how fervent these people are in support of an ideologue like Trump. And that is, at the end of the day, like an ideologue in the sense it speaks to like every preconceived fear that his voter base has.
Yeah.
And it's just the veracity of it is something I've never seen. I mean, of course, I've only been alive to see Bush and Obama and then Trump. So
remember Clinton,
Clinton, but I, hardly any memory of that, So
yeah, and
man, it was so good time.
He got a blowjob.
It's absolutely insane to me. Number one, and speaking of Clinton, I think that this is important to bring up. Currently, as we're speaking, as of the 11th of January, the articles of impeachment have been drafted against Donald Trump in the House of Representatives. There was objections by the Republicans in the House, which means that it will be going to a vote tomorrow, I believe.
Yeah.
And it will likely go through the House. But if it goes to the Senate, will it actually go through, or will more senators come out in opposition to impeachment? Now, keep in mind, this is the second time that Donald Trump will likely be impeached, at least in the House. Has not been impeached in the Senate. But it is history because, number one, he's a one-term president. Number two, he's being impeached twice by the House.
And within a year, or 370 days.
Yeah, in around that time, yeah. And what's insane to me is that we're debating whether or not to impeach a president that directly incited violence and a violent coup that resulted in the death of 5 people, including a Capitol Hill police officer. And we are not just saying, get that
the
fucker out.
The family of that Capitol Hill police officer is apparently coming out and saying that the death was likely due to medical causes, not the actual beating itself.
Is it the family saying that, or is it just other people?
I think it's the family.
I know that other people are saying that.
Yeah, I think there was an article.
But they're not widespread. Like, it was certain news sites that actually said that, but those news sites happen to be only conservative-leaning news sites and sources. So that's where, again, it's muddying the water. But if I may go back for a moment, because I didn't actually finish my list.
Oh, I apologize.
Oh, you're fine. Number 4, and kind of now piggybacking on what you were saying, we have to compare what the actual serious issues that happened on Wednesday, right? So not only did Donald Trump order all these people to go down to the Capitol, but they went down to the Capitol. Many of them were armed. Many of them had bombs. Many of them
handcuffs.
Had
they put up gallows
and zip ties. They were all, prepared for this. They were, oddly enough, welcomed, or at least it looks.
Yeah,
like
there were videos of like police officers like waving them in fact,
and opening the barricades and having them come in. These folks, broke through the windows, broke through the doors of the Capitol,
climbed up the walls.
Climbing up the walls, just absolutely insane. So that's the direct, and then obviously we saw, especially in the last 2 days when the videos have been released, the brutal beatings of different police officers, which normally, for consistency's sake, I'm just going to say this. Normally, that's not something that we focus on too much, because the back and forth when we see brutality usually happens when there's police officers that are being brutal to other people, and then those other people fight back. These police officers were not being brutal. All the videos showed that they were just like, "Whoa, you guys need to get back," blah blah blah, and
they showed a shit ton of restraint.
Yeah, there was a little bit of brutality, but I think that a little bit of brutality is just a teeny bit more justified when you are when you are causing causing such when you're essentially plotting against the U.S. government. I'm sorry, you're plotting against the U.S. government to overthrow the duly elected leader of the U.S. government.
And so now that leads me to my next point, and this is point number 5. And again, nobody can compare this to, BLM demonstrations throughout the summer. Point number 5 would be, what was the result of this, right? I would say, and I've studied government and politics and economies and stuff for 15 years, and I would say strongly that they attempted to assassinate a sitting vice president of the United States by order of the president of the United States. Keep in mind, they attempted to assassinate members of the legislative branch of government. They did engage in bioterrorism. The vast majority of them were not wearing masks. They were all together.
Well, not only that, there are people that are smearing feces on the walls of the Capitol, too.
I was just about to say that. They were smearing feces on the walls of the Capitol. By the way, I never want to hear another right-winger talk about how the left wing poops and pees and stuff and then their protests and stuff. Obviously, they do the same thing. There were people who were caught on YouTube videos saying actively that they do have COVID, and they're just spitting, and,
that's true,
shit all over the place. So it was a bioterrorist attack as well. Then the biggest one They went there in order to stop a democratically elected government from counting votes for a democratic election that already took place and certifying those votes from each and every state, which is the equivalent of an attempted coup. I don't care if it was failed. I don't care if it was, hodgepodge or it wasn't completely planned. It's still what it was.
But Aaron, you have to remember that there was a women's march when Trump got elected. I'm surely that is the same. There was that one woman that said she thought of blowing up the White House. You remember? I mean, it's just as bad.
So saying that you thought about it is not the same thing as actually acting upon it, and that's the difference.
No. I'm saying it's the same thing when the left does it. No, actually, yes, it's not the same thing because one side is a shade lighter than the other.
And what frustrates me the most about this whole situation is very much so that, number one, we could see this coming. And we did see this coming. We, even just us on this show, have talked about situations like this. Okay? Not this exact thing, but we have talked about coup attempts, possible coup attempts coming from the right, from the conservative side, from the Proud Boys, from whatever, right? We didn't know that it was going to happen, and we didn't think necessarily that it was going to happen in this way. But we said, and I remember this very clearly, we were talking about the possibility that that these groups of people would throw some kind of shit like this. And they did. And they did so out in the open.
Well, and they were talking about it.
They
were
so
literally
out in the open
talking
on Twitter.
about it.
They did so out in the open on
Parler.
They did so out in the open on Facebook. And yet they were not stopped immediately. They were not quelled immediately.
And yet, people protesting in a BLM protest get snatched up in random vans by the Department of Homeland Security. It's so fucking weird, man. I mean, it is but
straight out of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Straight out of the fucking Twilight Zone.
Well, is it though? Because, I mean, one side is...
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That this is like bizarro world shit. What
to
the fuck
us,
is happening
but
to
I
this
mean,
goddamn country?
Yeah.
To us, I was just going to say, we're not used to this kind of stuff.
This has been... this has been going on for... Hey, can you close that door, please?
Sorry, I was...
But we've seen this shit coming. We warned people.
Mm-hmm.
Our officials warned people. Newscasters warned people. There were threads going back to right after the election that were talking about plans about this from people who had inside sources, and they told us exactly what was going to happen. And it was laid bare, and tens of thousands of likes, retweets, things like that. And yet the government, the FBI, the CIA, the people that should be investigating these things did nothing. They did nothing to stop this. And what would have happened if these people were, number one, more well-armed, number two, had more of an intention of harming people, and three, if they were more organized, more well-organized, we might have had the deadliest terrorist attack on our nation's capital ever. We could have had that. And we are damn lucky that did not happen.
Does anybody remember what the death toll, the official total death toll of 9/11, but at the Pentagon specifically was? How many people died at the Pentagon?
Let me find that.
I'm not sure.
Because I want to know if it was like 5 or 10 people, then this also rivals that, because that's the last major terrorist attack on the nation's capital that I can think of.
Yeah.
Well, the number of deaths in total were 2,977.
Right, but I want to know how many people died specifically at the Pentagon. Because
Well,
the
I think what
125
I think what Tim meant to say is the largest like coordination
of our
it.
elected officials.
Yeah.
Because if you had people going in and Congress was unable to flee because they had to flee, was unable to flee properly and flee in time, we could have seen many of our elected officials killed,
Yeah.
murdered in the state capitol.
Yeah.
That is unacceptable in any kind of democracy. That is unacceptable. And you cannot come at me and say, oh, it's a revolution. Okay, because I have seen not many, but I have seen a few leftists say things to the effect that, well, at least the right knows how to stage a revolution.
Just gonna say
Fucking
this,
bullshit.
Yeah, it was like one of the most the reason why it was so successful is A, they were all conservative white people, maybe with, I mean, and two, yeah, that's about it. You know,
The threat wasn't
Oh,
taken
and
seriously enough. Not only
wasn't.
that, but we have to keep in mind that many of the people that were involved in this were police officers themselves.
Yeah,
We
and
know this
military
from
officers.
the FBI.
And that is
The
also
FBI has released, I apologize. The FBI has released official reports stating that there were many off-duty police officers from other states coming to this coup. And I want to know why every single one of them is not in federal prison right now.
Yeah.
Agreed. But I also, there's a bunch of things that I think we all want to have answers to, and I also want to know why it is that the Pentagon denied the National Guard. There was an approval that had to go through the Pentagon for Washington D.C. specifically to mobilize the National Guard, and they denied it immediately.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of
well,
talks around
not
that.
not only that, but like I mean, there's a BLM protest in Washington, and they literally had the shit beaten out of them.
Crackdown immediately.
Yeah,
there was an immediate.
There was a line of soldiers in front of the fucking Lincoln Memorial.
So you know what? If you were to look at literally any other country in the world, and this kind of setup happened, where you had a group of crazy rebels going into a government building and they were kind of let in. Meanwhile, the opposition was over here on the other side of the city with all the cops surrounding him. You know what that is? That sounds like it's an inside job. That sounds like it was part of our government intentionally wanting this to happen.
And not only that, but the reason why revolutions succeed is generally because the revolution has the support of the military or large portions of the military of that country. You literally like for a revolution to actually work out, you literally have to have the support of the men and women who defend that country. That's literally how revolutions succeed. Unless you're willing to do reformations, but that involves harder work, For the most part, people in positions of power like that, especially in capitalist societies, generally tend to side with more authoritarian views. And, that portion of the population who's rather authoritarian is going to be okay with that.
And I want any conservatives or any right-wing, people or right-leaning people to ask yourself this question. When the President of the United States essentially authorizes the assassination of the Vice President of the United States, who, number one, is also extremely conservative and, has been on the Trump team the entire time. And the only reason why that was okayed was because he didn't have the literal power to completely flip the election and say, no, we can't go through with this. He didn't have the power to do it. He legally did not have the power to do it. And they were ready to kill him because he legally did not have the power to do it.
They were chanting for his death right outside just before they broke in. They were, as far as I'm concerned, they were storming in to kill him and to kill others.
They will turn on you the moment that it is convenient. And we have seen that already. The young woman who died as a result of being shot by, I believe, the Secret Service after breaking into the floor of the House Chambers. Thank you. she was an ardent Trump supporter and a believer in QAnon, right? And not very long after more information came out about her and about the events surrounding her killing, that the same people that were linking arms with her when she was shot are now calling her Antifa.
Mm.
Are you fucking kidding me? They will turn on you in the blink of an eye, and your head will be on the chopping block next.
Stupid.
Oh my god, it's great too because we've been watching this unfold the entire time. Like, have you guys seen like the videos of like the people being arrested like as they land in the airport?
Yeah.
I just posted one earlier today.
Yeah,
I was like,
it was like, but it's like like this equivocation to like Antifa. It's like if it was it'd be a fucking bloodbath.
Yeah.
It'd be like
If
it were us, if it were literally us, it would have been like the entire time.
I'm going to take it a step further. I'm just going to be bluntly honest here. First of all, I've seen plenty over the past 6 years now. I've seen plenty of demonstrations where anti-fascists are participating in it, and I have yet to see too many anti-fascists that are 50, 60 years old and obviously have diabetes and all this other stuff. Like, it's obvious that these were all legitimately Trump supporters. They're not.
Of course they were.
They're all old boomers who are very overweight, who think that they maybe they were veterans 30, 40 years ago or something, and they think that they could take back their government from God knows what.
I think that's also an oversimplification because there has been a massive radicalization of young people into fascist groups like the Proud Boys and white supremacist groups.
Correct. Yeah, and you got people like what is it, the Nordic Chewbacca who was there with his face painted with horns. Yeah, but what's his real name? Jake Asty, is it? Jake?
I don't remember.
Well, anyway, but you got folks like him who are well-known QAnon conspiracy theorists, well documented. He has his own podcast where he gets on, he talks about these insane things. I'm sure he was one of the ones who propelled Pizzagate and shit years ago. So, we know who these people are. We've identified these people. These people are well known. They've had their politics for a long time. You look at any of their social media pages, it all has, a consistent line of their opinions and stuff. I almost wish it was Antifa who pulled something not like this off, but who actually got out there and did something to this level, because it would show, or at least it would contrast, literally, side by side, the difference in treatment.
Yeah.
If it was black people, if it was like Black Lives Matter, or just black people in general who are fighting for their right to live in this country, to not be shot by the cops, they would have made it past the stairs. They all would have been.
They would have been killed immediately.
Or if not killed, just brutalized.
Or that, and then like killed as a result of the beatings. Yeah.
We're talking about a local, not just police force, not just Washington PD, but also the National Guard was definitely mobilized during the summer, who literally brutalized everybody in front of the White House, so some dumbass could walk across the street with his Bible and pretend like he's, I don't even know what he was trying to pretend. But like, they're willing to do that, but they're not willing to stop people, insurrectionists, coup attempt folks from going into the Capitol and stopping our democratic vote.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind, by the way, for any right-leaning person who may be listening, this is an assault on your constitutional rights, yours and mine, on all of ours. It is an assault on the freedom to vote for whomever you want. Okay? And the United States voted, and the United States voted in favor of Biden. Biden won the November election. End of story. Okay? And it's been recounted and done over and over and over again. There have been over 50 lawsuits, none of which have given Trump any significant or any really benefit, because the judges throw them out because there's no evidence. There is zero evidence to prove that there has been significant voter fraud during this election.
How many times now have we recounted the states that were, put into question, like Arizona and Michigan and even Nevada? It's been like 3 or 4 times. Georgia, that we recounted all these states, and each time, not only does it not produce any significant new results, but it actually increases the Biden lead. If anything, there were a few votes that were not counted for Biden previously. So I don't understand where they're coming. Where's the evidence that they keep talking about that they have? What is the substantial, like, the factual evidence? Because I have not seen anything. I've seen, again, random conspiracy theories on, like, YouTube. I've seen people throw up random charges on all of social media. I've seen the president over and over and over again say the same damn thing he's been saying for 2 years, but I don't see actual factual evidence.
Yeah, and on top of the point that I was making as well, is that since this is an assault on every American's right to vote, this is an assault on every American's right to vote. What happens? I mean, it likely will not, but what would happen, say, if for some reason there was conspiracy that made its way all the way through the Democratic Party and permeated throughout all of the leftist spaces, that a Republican that is elected was fraudulently elected, and these claims are false. I'm saying let's say these claims are false. What happens if the Democrats do the exact same thing? What would your reaction be? How would you feel about it if the Democrats did exactly what these Trump supporters did? Like later down the line, would you find it as an infraction upon your rights? Would you find it an abhorrent dissection of your right to vote as an American citizen? Because I sure fucking do, number one, right now, and I would in that case as well. Because I don't know about y'all, but I don't like cheaters. Okay. And if Joe Biden and the Democratic Party had cheated in this election, if there was any evidence that they had actually cheated in this election, I would be on your side for the most part. I would say, what the fuck? Why is this happening? Right? This is not okay. But that isn't what's happening. Conspiracy theory is permeating the Republican Party, and it is destroying the minds of the people within it. And it is absolutely terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
It is terrifying to know that that the Republican Party and Republican voters can be so easily duped. It's not, and it takes a concerted effort from many politicians and many thought leaders, right, within the Republican Party to change the politics of a party within 4 years so dramatically. And the real radicalization of the Republican Party into what we're seeing now is disgusting, and it's frightening. And as any regular conservative or any regular Republican, I don't care if you vote for Republicans. That's your right as an American citizen, right? I might disagree with you, but that's your right. What happens when they're okay with killing your Republican candidate that you voted for? If they're okay with killing the vice president while he's on the House floor, what happens when they're okay with killing the Republican that you voted for? What happens?
Well, to be fair, that vice president was a Republican that they voted for.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying another one. Bring on another one. You bring in fucking Matt Gaetz, whatever. You vote for Matt Gaetz for whatever. You vote for Matt Gaetz for president. I mean, I think you're a dipshit, but you vote for Matt Gaetz for president, and then a conspiracy theory spreads throughout your party, and then those people try to take down the person that you want into office and that you voted for and that plenty of others voted for. And like what happens? What is the natural conclusion here? The natural conclusion is the complete corruption of any remaining shred of dignity in our government. And it will destroy this country. It will destroy it for you, and it will destroy it for me. There will be nothing left. And that is not that is not fear-mongering. I am genuinely concerned what the precedent here is. The precedent is scary. I apologize. That it's worrying. It's really, really worrying that this kind of shit can happen, and that people are able to just get up and lie to millions of people, to millions and millions of people, and just lie and lie and lie and lie and have these big lies, right? And have people believe them in so fervently that they would break into the Capitol building armed, right? And ready and willing to kill congressmen. That is disturbing, and it should disturb everyone in this country.
I want to point something out because I think this should be said. We know that there's different levels of elections or different levels of how people are elected in this country. We know that big money and big corporations and big lobbying firms and stuff get a lot of people elected. But I do want to point this out. Regardless of how non-direct the president is in terms of how we elect him or her, we do directly vote for our Congress people, our representatives. That is direct democratic republic, action, right? So though I normally go against a lot of politicians when it comes to ideology and what they do in Washington and how they choose to govern our country, the fact remains that if you go and you try to attack them or you try to kill them or you succeed, you're basically telling me that my vote and the vote of every single person who voted for any of them, it's irrelevant, it's invalid. We're going to overturn it because we said so. We're going to go against the Constitution because we said so. Like it or not, here's another thing that I think it's important to bring up in this specific cast. Like it or not, we're not at all a country that's governed by a person. We're not governed by a council. We're not even governed by a Congress or a president or a Supreme Court. We're governed by the rule of law. We're governed by a law. We all pretty much agree to play by that frame, to play by that set of rules. So when you trample on that in order to achieve your objectives, and that's what happened on Wednesday, you're basically saying that no, you're above that. You're above having to play by that law. You're above having to allow people that I and you and everybody else sent to Washington to do work for us. You're above allowing them to do that work. And you're above all of it. All you care about is installing a fascist dictator who's not elected because you believe in a conspiracy theory. A YouTube video that says that the sun is made out of ice and not out of fire and metals like the media tells us. It's stupid. It's silly. Give me a break. These are the same people who say all the time that they're the ones who care about the Constitution. The left doesn't care about it, but they're the ones who care about the Constitution. Well, where the
We
fuck
care about democracy and liberty and guns.
If you care about the Constitution,
communists want to take
do
that
a
away from
constitutional
you.
action to show your displeasure at the system. Protest. By all means, please. Your First Amendment right is there so that you can do such a thing.
At this point in time, I don't even know what they're protesting now. It's done. It's been done for a while. You wanted to protest a week or two after the election, fine. But it's been certified. It's been recertified. It's been recounted. It's been recounted. Literally, the Electoral College met last month and certified it. Literally, Congress, through a terrorist attack, certified it.
Yeah,
What are you really protesting?
and we can all agree that it's fucking dumb, but at the same point in time, you have the constitutional right to protest it if you so choose.
I mean,
but what
here's the
happened wasn't a
thing.
protest.
Here's the thing. What material benefit has Trump given these people? Like, what like did they really get out of 4 years of Trump? You know, and people will say,
He's busting out the papers.
and hold on, people will cite, well, the tax breaks, the tax reform, but the vast majority of people, they did not see a change in their taxes because the vast majority of people make under 50 grand a year. At most, at most you might see a 2% difference, which is still nothing. Oh, but you're gonna. But then they'll cite, well, he saved the average American $2,000 in taxes a year. Well, that's accounting the outliers over here, like, you know, the people that has the salaries of like 50, 100 million Americans. I mean, that's obviously, I'm being hyperbolic by using that language, but yeah, that's essentially what it seems like at this point, right?
Let's also keep in mind that the tax cuts reverse themselves. So
yeah, within 10 years, or 7 years, or yeah, no, it was like within 10
pretty
years.
soon here, actually.
Yeah.
Let's also keep in mind that the bulk of those tax cuts didn't go to average Americans at all. They went to big corporations. They went to really, really wealthy people. They went to Donald Trump's friends. Like, that's not.
Yeah, I think anyone making over 400,000 a year or something like that. And that's where that crazy outlier they got because they saved so much fucking money in taxes. And so they're saying, oh, every American has saved $2,000 or every American family has saved $2,000. It's not true.
And y'all in Tennessee, you ain't making $400,000 a year. I don't know, like, what kind of bullshit line you've been fed. I mean, do you look at your paycheck every month? Because I fucking doubt it's that.
They're all temporarily embarrassed millionaires.
Yeah, that's what every U.S. citizen believes, apparently.
So here's the interesting thing that NPR was talking about earlier today. Speaking of what did Trump actually accomplish, apparently he's set. This is going to be the first public event he's done since last Wednesday. He's set to go down to a portion of the border to, I don't know, show off or give a speech at the very, very tiny section of wall that he actually achieved. Correct.
Yeah.
Help. Why? That's okay. So I mean, Butter Toast brings up a good point that it's like, really, what is he doing for the average American? What is he doing for you? Aside from holding up these vague patriotic ideas that are so vague that he can't even really talk about them in any meaningful way.
He fought against China and he put tariffs on them.
Yeah,
which also impacted like farmers and manufacturers like really badly.
All of us, I don't know about you, but I know it impacted my industry that I work in pretty hardcore. So,
yeah. Oh, actually, yeah, same here.
A lot of people. And why is it that we are so adverse to cooperating and working with other countries? Like, I understand that we are adversaries with China at the moment, and we have been adversaries with China in the past. But why is it a good thing necessarily to just say, fuck China? Let's make it hard for China to move in this capitalist mode that we're working in, right? Why make it hard for them to prosper when it makes it harder for us to prosper? Because that's not even like nationalistic. That's not even self-serving. It's idiocy.
Well, it's kind of like, it's almost kind of like Brexit as well, because like a lot of these isolationist ideas of like, we're better than everyone else, and we need to keep keep it that way by staying away from everyone else, which was a lot of like what Brexit was. But like it's literally bit all of Britain in the ass economically because of this.
Immediately.
Yeah,
Immediately.
and not only and not only that, but like I've heard like the main talking point of, oh well, it's like starting a business. You leave a union that is on a international scale, and you start a business.
Speaking of,
It's not even the same. Like one of these things are not like the other here. It's
Countries'
like
economies are not a business. I'm sorry, they're not.
but speaking of Great Britain, and really actually the rest of the world, did you hear or see Boris Johnson's official response to what happened at the Capitol?
Mm-mm.
It was something like that. I read an article about it, but I can't seem to remember.
I just thought it was interesting that literally all of Trump's supposed allies that he made around the world while he was president are all condemning him. Like they just think
because this is clearly a terrorist, like a fucking terrorist plot and a terroristic action that went through.
And North Korea turns around and says, "Well, that sucks. Trump basically wasn't a partner like he thought he would be, and we're gonna just start enriching uranium again, and our nuclear program. We're gonna start launching nukes again."
Yep.
And it's at least when I say I'm voting for Joe Biden, I can at least tell you why specifically I'm voting for Joe Biden. What
as much as
policies
we
I'm hoping
hate
to
it,
get. Yeah, as much as we as the left dislike it, I can at least tell you what policies I'm looking for. What things I'm looking for his administration to do. What things he's said that, I am looking forward to maybe. Can Trump supporters really tell me without any vagaries what policies Trump actually is going to give us beside build a wall? That's vague. That's very, very, very fucking vague. It does not give me enough information, and it does not tell me exactly what you want to do other than keep Mexicans out. That's because that's all it tells me, is that you want to keep Mexicans from crossing the border, which a wall doesn't even do very well. But
no, the Trump supporters themselves proved that on Wednesday. Anybody can climb up these damn walls.
Yeah. But it seriously begs the question: why are they willing to lay their lives down for someone they can't even name like any policies off the top of their head? Like with Bernie Sanders, I can say Medicare for all, right? Big one. That's a big one. Better unionization in this country, revitalizing the
making sure that the board of directors of a given company is employee owned. That was another one of Bernie's policies.
That's a good one.
Taxing Wall Street speculation so we can have a universal college.
Yeah.
Or
and
Medicare
these are
for
just
all.
a couple of things. I could say the same thing about and I don't like Tulsi Gabbard, but I could say the same thing about Tulsi Gabbard. I could say the same thing about Andrew Yang. I could say the same thing about Kamala Harris. I could say the same thing about fucking John Delaney.
Right.
Not
Bloomberg.
I'm not saying that I like any of these people, mind you.
Not Bloomberg.
Not Bloomberg. No.
I can't think of a single
Bloomberg.
With billions, but he couldn't even do that. So
I can't think of anything Bloomberg was offering, but but really, I watch Trump speeches. I watch him talk. I read things about him, not only from left news sources, but right news sources, and I don't see the policy. I don't see any.
Oh, he did the ban. He did the Muslim ban. That was another one of his policies.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, but it's like that's not like an actual policy,
No,
though.
it's just more
You know,
nationalistic, fascist
what
bullshit.
what what
Yeah,
does it what does it
Yeah,
provide the country to ban
fascists are
ethnic
reactionaries.
groups from certain countries?
security.
You know, it like without vagaries. You know, like I will not accept national security as an answer because it's a vagary. It
Well,
doesn't
not
give
only
me
that, but they
any
said
real information.
they were going to have a plan that would be better than Medicare for all. We haven't seen it.
Yeah,
They
Yeah,
like
they haven't even said anything about it. They
at
haven't said
all.
anything. No policy at all. We
Yeah.
haven't even been told if it's an opt-in system. We haven't been
Yeah.
like we don't know anything about this Republican healthcare plan
Mm-hmm.
because
I
it
mean,
has never been talked about aside from we have a plan.
mm-hmm. At least we have a public option. At least that can lead us into, form of universal health care eventually. You know, but yeah, no, I mean
And
it.
I also want to know right-leaning people, conservatives. We are looking for policies that not only help us but help you. They
Yeah.
help you, and we can tell you why they help you and show you with data
Mm-hmm.
why they would help you.
Yeah, I think the adversarial stuff really does come from the right because I'm I I don't know. I mean, after Wednesday, this has been quite the
Quite the ride.
quite the ride.
And
That's all
and
I can say.
and before this happened, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a break from social media, right? I'm gonna take a little break from social media, just a couple of days. I'm just gonna take a couple of days break from social media, and then this shit happened, and now I'm fucking glued to my phone. You know? Because what's gonna happen in the next hour? What's gonna happen tomorrow? What's gonna happen? What's gonna
the
happen?
17th and the 20th is what I'm focused on.
Yeah, because apparently there are more plans to do more terroristic actions against the government. And I want to know that I now, with all eyes on them, what is the federal response to this? And if it is nothing short of an utter devastating crackdown, what are we doing?
Yeah, well,
What are
and
we
a
doing?
lot of Republican senators, I think, sent letters to Nancy Pelosi recently, asking for healing, and by not
Yeah,
pursuing
bullshit. Get out of here.
but by not
Fucking liars.
pursuing impeachment, and it was like the craziest thing. AOC was I think it was CBS that was reporting on it, and AOC said a few things, and she even said you heal by putting these people in jail, by trying them, by
Yeah,
that's the only
she's
way you
right.
can. And she brought up the point. Well, what if another government did this to the United States? No one would be calling for healing by
We'd only
letting it
get out of them.
go.
Yeah, we would be going to war with them immediately.
We'd
Right.
kill them.
So why are
Like
we allowing homegrown fascists who, for the most part, would love to institute a dictatorship, which is completely antithetical to the United States of America and what it is supposed to stand for? So why support this if you're constitutionalists and you care about the flag and you're a patriot?
Care about the flag. They ripped the flag down and replaced it with a Trump flag.
and
Yeah,
here's
and
here
not only that,
here's
but they put like literal fascist emblems on flags up as well. In place of some of these other flags. Or no, it was on a
here's
They're all
here
column.
liars. They're pieces of shit.
Yeah.
here's something that I saw. If you're a patriot, what kind of a patriot storms the Capitol building wielding another flag
A Confederate
and
flag.
tries to take
The worst
prisoners,
irony.
tries to kill Congress people? What kind of a patriot does that?
One who believes fervently in that one single line that Jefferson said many years ago about a tree of liberty needs to be restored from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Problem is that they're kind of applying that in a very different way that's unnecessary at
Mm-hmm.
this point. And everybody seems to have this different definition of what it is to be a patriot. Unfortunately, in the 21st century, the idea of a patriot has become extremely far right. I don't understand why. There's nothing patriotic about the far right at all.
No.
There's actually, in my opinion, I'm going to go a step further. This might be what causes us to be on the left, but like to me, there's nothing patriotic about holding on to old traditional norms and not recognizing that society and the country specifically is meant to change over time.
Well, didn't the founding fathers see the Constitution as a live document, the Bill of Rights as a live document?
It seems like they did. It seemed based on historical documented evidence, based on what they said themselves about the document. It does seem like you even look at provisions. Number one, the fact that they made it amendable. That's obviously the biggest obvious one. But number two, you look at the open-endedness of the Constitution itself, and so many of the tenets of it. It's very broad, it's very general, and they did that on purpose. They recognize you can't have that much of a binding document, meaning everything is going to stay the same all the time. No, it is living and breathing.
It's a live document to stop like revolutionary action from happening, right? That would be the assumption.
Well,
you would think that the government would be able to change through reform.
It's also to just improve our country. Our founding fathers, I very, very much doubt, I very, very much doubt that they thought that a never-changing that the country, in order to be perfect, would necessitate consistency of never changing.
Well, not only that, but like if you took Trump back to the time to the founding of this country, they would have called him another fucking King George.
They would have chopped his head off.
They would have called him. Yeah, they would have called him another King George. And they would
have straight up executed.
I think the line, to form a more perfect union right there proves that it's a living, ongoing document. It's not that we did form a perfect union. We already did that. We did that in 1776. No, it's ongoing. To form a more perfect union, in order to do this, we do establish this document. So, I don't know. I think that this is it's one of those just weird discussions. I didn't even understand the whole patriot mentality when I was more on the right wing. That portion didn't make sense to me because they don't seem like patriots. Like when I think of a patriot, I think of somebody who's willing to stand up for what's right for their fellow countrymen, regardless of what the government or anybody else says. That's different than standing up for a sitting president who just wants to hold on to power as long as he can and then breaks the Constitution in order to get that accomplished. Like, those are two very different things.
Yeah. Right. I'm almost at a loss. A loss for what really to say, because we have seen just an unprecedented attack on our democracy, and these are some big these are some big terms and words that liberals would like to throw around, platitudes that are supposed to make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. But but it's real. This is a real existential threat to our democracy. Do we continue to allow these people to believe the things that they believe with no recourse? Do we allow it? Because if we allow it, and we allow this to spread and get worse, what happens the next time they try? What happens on the 17th? What happens in a year? What happens in 10 years? We need to cut this flower in the bud. We need to get rid of it. And we need to get rid of it in whatever way we can that hopefully doesn't require, really fascist action. I would prefer if we can bring these people to their fucking senses for 2 seconds. Think critically, please. But that is not an option anymore. We've gone past that. If you've ever argued with, with one of these super far right conspiracy theorists online, ever, which Aaron has many, many, many times. I have many, many, many times. They're too far gone. How do you keep these people from going farther? Because this is not the end point. There is more crazy to go. And we have to stop it somehow. Otherwise, I am genuinely afraid for where this country's going to end up. I'm genuinely afraid.
So we have about 15 minutes left. I think one of the final thoughts for this, or one of the final topics that I kind of want to get into, is now the aftermath, right? Which we kind of touched on throughout the program, but like specifically, what's next, right? So we know that Congress introduced, or they're kind of introducing articles of impeachment. I was curious. I honestly, and I think I posted about this yesterday on social media, but this really feels like a certain political drama that's like no longer on the screen, but like in real life, in the sense that we have a pretty fair chance at having 3 different presidents within the month of January. But I don't know how realistic that is, but does anybody think that at like the final moment that Mike Pence is going to go ahead and call for invocation, or the invoking Section 4 of the 25th? You don't think so?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think that because we're still seeing support from this from Republican congressmen and congresswomen. We're still seeing support. And as long as there is that support, I don't think some unilateral action like the 25th Amendment will be invoked. Whether whether impeachment hearings will play out and will play out in a positive way, I don't know.
Congress has nothing to do with it, though. Like whether or not they're for it or against it, this is
that doesn't
entirely
matter.
executive branch. It does. This is entirely an executive branch decision.
But the reason why I'm saying that I think that it does matter that congressmen do not support this is that these congressmen can also rev up their own bases and can continue to propagate this lie. And if we oust the president, which I think we should, I think he should be impeached for realsies this time, please. So that he can never run for office again. It sets a precedent where they can say, look at what they're doing. Look at what Pence has done with the Democrats. They've thrown out the president. And you're going to see that from officials in Congress. And people listen to officials. They do. They listen to officials. And that's how we've gotten into this place. It's how we've gotten into this place. Because the president and his cronies have been lying to the American people for so long. And they're going to continue to lie. So I think unilateral executive action to get the president out of office right now is a bad idea. I think it's a bad idea. We have to try and go through the impeachment vote in the House and then the impeachment vote in the Senate. Because as much as I think this president needs to be out of power now, I do not think that will truly solve the issue. And in fact, I think it might make things worse. I think it might. I think it might make things worse because I think it will fan the flames even more. And I think that we have to go about this the proper way. And I don't think that the 25th Amendment is the proper way, in my opinion.
my concern. I'm just more concerned about what he could potentially do for the next week and a half, almost 2 weeks. So I'm almost getting to a point where I really don't care
I
what
understand that
political
point as
fallout might exist or whatever. He needs to be removed from office. Period. I wish it was possible to just trial and convict him now, so we can send federal marshals into the Oval Office and just haul him out in fucking handcuffs.
that would
But
be ideal.
it would. But that's what I'm saying. It's interesting because it puts a sitting vice president in a very uncomfortable position. We all know how loyal he was this entire time until last week, until it became evident that literally Trump even turned on him. But I find it hard to believe that there has been even one vice president in our history who hasn't thought about this sort of thing, who hasn't thought about the fact that something could happen to a president and I become president. Like, Mike Pence has to be thinking about this pretty hard. Like, that's a very tough position to be in. And so for him to call a session, or not a session, but a meeting of the cabinet without the president, and to ask for an official vote on the 25th Amendment, it's never been done before. That would be the first time in history, and it has got to be a very awkward position for him specifically. So I really don't think it's going to happen. On the flip side of that, my honest opinion when it comes to impeachment is I don't think it's going to get anywhere. It took him a year or two to even impeach him the first time. And then once articles of impeachment were finally introduced, several months that went into an election, like, I don't think that it's going to I don't think it's going to pass again. And even if it does, I think it's going to be too little too late. It's going to essentially be one for the history books. And I've seen a number of articles that suggested that he'll be barred from running for public office again in the future, which would be cool. But I don't recall where specifically in the Constitution it says that if a public servant is impeached twice, he suddenly cannot run for office again or loses his salary. That's another one I don't recall.
Well, it's not an impeach twice thing. I think that isn't if he is impeached by the House and the Senate, like fully impeached from office, that he cannot hold office again.
Correct, but I don't think that the Senate's gonna actually.
Now with Mitch McConnell, Mitch McGonigal. Yeah.
Listen, McGonigal is a nicer person than Mitch by a factor of 100.
Is she? Yeah, she is. Yeah, she is.
She at least cares about the students. She cares about the students.
She also isn't a turtle.
Or like a cat. So
yeah.
I mean,
quite literally.
But but Mitch McConnell is a bloated corpse walking around and stopping any real action from being taken in this country. And I'm so fucking glad that he's not going to be the majority leader anymore.
I mean, he's still going to be the minority leader, and they have a shot at winning it again in 2 years. But
well, of course, but maybe we can have 2 years just to try and actually vote on something, please.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to think to myself the other day, when was the last time that we didn't have Congress that wasn't gridlocked and we actually got some legislation done? I'm pretty sure it was 10 or 11 years ago now, 11, maybe even 12. During the first couple of years of the Obama administration. But even then, they had so much obstruction that they didn't really get anything passed. So it's been most of my life that Congress has always had a problem with passing legislation. And specifically in the last decade and a half, that anything that gets done in this country is done by executive order, right? Like, we rarely get big things done through Congress anymore.
Well, I think that we're getting a population that is more politically active and more politically minded. And I think that that's bringing a lot more attention to these issues than perhaps it was maybe just 10 years ago. Because I mean, sure, there were a ton of people that came out for Obama when Obama first ran. There's a ton of people, of course, that running on hope and change and whatnot. but I think that we have a lot fewer people that will be as easily duped, and at the same point in time, we also have an ease of communication that we've never had before in human history. Things are becoming so much easier for people to communicate on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, all of the social media, and news networks and everything. I think it's becoming easier than ever for people to talk.
I'm confused though. How does that translate into Congress getting something done?
Because public support is a factor in what some politicians will push, right? And you know this. I mean, it's not unilateral, right? Like if people are pushing for Medicare for all, there's no guarantee that people are going to vote. That Congress people are going to vote on it, but it brings it to the forefront, right? And more people talk about it, and then all of a sudden, a public option is an option, right? Whereas before, not even a public option was an option. Um, the $2,000 stimulus checks are now an option, whereas before they were not an option. Student debt cancellation, currently 10,000 from the Biden administration, is the proposal. It's that was not an option before, and now it's an option. That 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 people are talking about, and more people are in support of. um, public opinion matters. It doesn't matter, you know, as a rule, um, but it does matter in perception.
Hmm.
And with so many more politically minded people, there are a lot more people that are willing to primary Congress people that are unwilling to do their jobs and to actually make laws. You know, I think that there are more people willing to challenge the establishment and to challenge establishment powers, and I think that that's generally a good thing. I think that we just need to get the conservative part of it, like, out of this deep conspiracy laden underground that they're in, and then and things might be a little bit easier then, but right now, I don't know. The future is uncertain.
So, final thoughts?
Nothing from
I'm
me. I mean,
nothing.
nothing. Yeah,
Okay.
it's I mean pretty much everything everyone else has said. I mean, there's really not much else we can say. It's just we literally just witnessed a fascist takeover or attempt. Yeah.
Attempt to take over, yeah.
It's kind of terrifying. All I can say is, maybe read up on why the Weimar Republic fell.
Read up on the Reichstag and the Night of Broken Glass.
Yeah.
Read up on your history, kids, because this might be important.
Yeah, you might want to take a look at the parallels that are going on. I mean that's all. That's all.
Even 1920s Italy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's scary times.
I mean, who
Aaron,
knows?
I spoke last, so am willing to give my final thoughts after you.
Oh,
I thought we were all doing final thoughts.
Yeah,
I'm going to do my final thoughts last because I've been speaking so much.
So I don't really have a final thought this time, to be honest. I'm just so kind of like, yeah, it's like, again, it's like we're watching a real life political drama, and part of it doesn't feel real to me. Like it's a bunch of things on the news or on social media or whatever. It's crazy, but my hope is that people across the country, regardless of political ideology, will focus on staying close to their friends and family. You know, because we don't know what the hell is going to happen tomorrow. We don't know how serious things can actually get. So, you know, if it kind of gets to that point, be around the people you care about the most.
Yeah, for sure. And it's sobering to even have to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, my final thoughts. Geez, what can I say that hasn't been said a million times? We need to be very careful with how we approach this.
Yeah.
And we have to be very careful on how we deal with this. And we have to have a planned approach. We cannot be reactive. We need to stop these problems before they start.
Yeah. Well,
because being reactive at this point has led us to where we are.
Mm-hmm. Well, with all that being said, it's top of the hour. We'll be back Sunday if we don't have another delay like we did tonight. Although I'm sure it's really no big deal. But anyway, thank you for everyone who watched. Thank you for everyone who commented. And hopefully we'll see you on the next episode.
Yeah, and please leave your thoughts down below so that we can engage with them, because we will.
Subscribe.
We will.
All right.
Yeah, and subscribe. Give us a like. Yeah. Have a good night, everyone.